to ever play the game. And of course, everyone knows about the pursuit of Babe Ruth's 715 mark, and he, of course, accomplished that back in 1974, and went on to finish a 23-year career in the major leagues, hitting 755 homers. So, in my eyes, in my view, and many across the world, as far as sports fans are concerned, and baseball fans, he'll go down as one of the all-time greatest, again, to ever play the game.
Is there anybody playing the game today that reminds you of him, or was he sort of like a Babe Ruth where, nobody will probably ever come up to the performance levels and the stats?
That's a great question, Joan. I think with this new generation of ball players, I truly believe the jury is somewhat still out. I think locally we can look at the White Sox with Tim Anderson, the enthusiasm, the love, and the passion that he brings to the sport. But overall, right now, I don't think that there is an individual playing the game today that could compare to what Hank Aaron meant. And no disrespect to this generation of ball players and what we're experiencing today, but when you talk about the accomplishments of Henry Hammer and Hank Aaron in the time that he was playing the sport, there was so much racial tension, in this country. And of course, he played in the Negro League, and when he got the opportunity, when he got the call to move to the majors with the Milwaukee Braves at the time, back in the 50s, there were a lot of Negro leaguers who felt that he was making a big mistake leaving the Negro Leagues to go play in the majors because of the racial divide, but the fact that they didn't believe that he would be able to withstand everything, the pressures and the challenges to make it there. And he was better suited to play in the Negro League, and thank goodness, Henry Aaron took on the challenge, and of course the rest is history.
Boy, it's hard for me, and I'm sure hard for you, to just even imagine what players went through when sports were so much more segregated than they are these days. I mean, I can remember when I was little, it seemed like almost all of the pro basketball teams were white people, and I remember the myth was, what was it? Black people weren't fast enough or whatever to play basketball. And now you look at basketball teams, and I think you would say, well, white people really don't have what it takes generally to play at the pro level. I mean, it's just amazing what a generation makes, and I can't imagine, but I'm very hopeful for, the generation after us, Jerry, would look back on some of this stuff and go, man, how could that have possibly been? How could that have been true?
Well, the interesting thing about your comment right there is the fact that a lot of these current athletes, they're not in touch with their past. They don't know a lot of history regarding their respective sports that they play in. And I think that's one thing that Henry Aaron was trying to do, is bridge the gap between the forefathers, those founding pioneers who paved the way for these current athletes and players. So he acted as an ambassador to the game. And that was one reason, again, he was here in Chicago numerous times throughout his, his career as an ambassador, to pass the torch and to let the younger players know that the reason you're having success now, whether it's monetarily or the freedom to travel on luxury planes or stay in great hotels, is the fact that players such as myself paved the way and paid the price for you to have these these perks, so to speak. So he was true to the game, and he wanted the best. And Joan, it's interesting because when Henry Aaron broke the record, Babe Ruth's record back in 1974, as a young kid growing up on the South Side in Chicago, it really touched many of us African-American young kids because it shows that as a black man, as a black person in a country divided with racial tension, that we could overcome. And I can vividly remember when Al Downing threw the pitch and Hank Aaron cleared it out and the ball sailed over the fence in Fulton County Stadium. Henry Aaron, and you would never see this today, of course, but Henry Aaron, as he was rounding the bases, there were fans who ran onto the field, and there's an iconic picture of a fan running side by side with Henry Aaron between, I believe, second and third base as he was ready to round third, and he was patting Henry Aaron on the shoulder to congratulate him. But at the time, Joan, back in 1974, leading up to that, Henry Aaron got so many death threats because our white brothers and sisters didn't want to see him surpass Babe Ruth. And so when this fan rushed onto the field to congratulate Henry Aaron, I think everyone had a collective hold of their breath because we didn't really know what was going to happen because it was live. And we didn't know if this fan was going to try to stab him or attack him or whatever the case may be. And, of course, he gave him a pat on the back. And Henry, to his credit and to his character, stayed in true form, rounded the bases, and he received the applause and the ovation from the packed house. But for us young folks, young black boys and girls in the black community, all throughout not only Chicago but across the country, it was a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air that an African American male, a black male, surpassed. Some arguably say the best to play the game in Babe Ruth, surpassed, eclipsed his number, and so it meant a lot when that ball went out of the ballpark that day in April of 1974.
Jerry, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your memories of Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron, dead at the age of 86. Jerry, of course, you can hear this coming Sunday, Rewind Sports 60 here on WCPT. Jerry, thank you so much for doing this.
Anytime, and I'll do anything for you, as you all know. Thank you so very much, and keep the faith and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Jerry. We're going to be back. I've got some new COVID numbers for you. We'll be back right after this.
All right, let's bring on the guest, Jerry Riles. He is a radio producer for a long time. He currently runs the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, and he produced radio shows for Walter Payton and Gale Sayers, football legends, not only in Chicago, but in football lore. They are huge. And here's the interesting thing. Hey, Jerry, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gary. Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to join you.
Here's the weird thing, and producer Alan pointed this out. This is the 34th live show. And what was Walter Payton's number?
You got it. 34.
Okay. I'm just hoping for the mega tonight. Oh, the mega.
There you go. There you go.
Welcome to the show. And I can talk to you about a lot of things, but something happened this week when you were doing your show, and I really enjoyed it because I like when things are uncomfortable and there's squirming as you listen to something or you're watching a TV show and there's something very awkward and it comes right through the screen. And I think you had that moment, Jerry, and you can tell me your feeling about it, but you had the owner of the Chicago Bears on, George McCaskey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in the middle of the conversation, you kind of dropped this on him. Hey, why don't you give the Walter Payton family 1% ownership of the Bears?
Yeah.
And he didn't know that was coming, I would imagine. And I heard him squirm for about 3 or 4 minutes trying to get out of that. And he never responded to that in the way you would like him to respond. Have you heard back from him since?
No, we haven't heard anything back from the McCaskey family or anyone from the Bears organization regarding that situation. And the interesting thing about it is I was thankful and appreciative that the chairman, George McCaskey, agreed to come on the show because once the Bears were eliminated from the playoffs and their season was over with, many may know or may not know, but Chicago fan base were calling for the heads of the general manager, Ryan Pace, the head coach, Matt Nagy, people in the front office, because it was an embarrassment. It was a debacle, and we wanted change. And so George McCaskey, they had their end of the season presser. He and Ted Phillips, the president, CEO of the Chicago Bears. And then they made individual media runs around the Chicago area, being on with the local sports talkers. And so we were able to be a part of that. And I was grateful and appreciative that he decided to come on. And of course, we throw out the questions. Is Matt Nagy coming back? What do you think about Ryan Pace? And we get the politically correct answers all throughout the interview for the most part. And he spent, I got to say, he spent 45 minutes on the air with us, which is phenomenal. And it's typically unheard of, to be honest with you, to have someone of his stature to be on for so long. But he gave us the politically correct answers. Oh yeah, we like what we're seeing. We're not happy with the season. Blah 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 blah. But the question that I posed him, which had been on my mind for quite some time, and I've been carrying it around for some time, and that is ownership, representation as far as minority, ownership, because the Bears and the McCaskey family simply don't have that in their front office or their board or anything of that nature. And so I always felt that Walter Payton, he is synonymous with Chicago Bears and football. And Papa Bear George Halas loved him. He just simply loved him. And of course, for those who may not be aware, Walter Payton, who passed away in 1999 unexpectedly at a very young age due to cancer, he had placed a bid to become the first minority owner, African-American owner of a football team, the National Football League. And that, of course, was the St. Louis Rams back during the time when they were in St. Louis. And he was denied by the owners because he didn't get enough votes. And Walter was simply devastated. He was literally simply devastated and crushed that after all of his contributions and hard work and dedication and loyalty and passion for the sport, that the owners turned a blind eye to his requests. And of course, he's no longer with us. So it's been sticking with me. And so I took advantage of the opportunity when George McCaskey came on. And after listening to all of this politically correct answers, I said, well, let's step out and tell him and ask him and see what he says. And initially, Gary, I was looking for 24% of the Payton family to be owners of the Chicago Bears franchise, but I knew it was a little bit too far outlandish. So I said, well, let me settle for 1%. And so when I posed the question to Mr. McCaskey, to George, as you just shared, he started backpedaling and he started, praising the Payton family and the contributions of Jarrett, the older son of Walter Payton, and of course Brittany, his daughter, and Connie, his wife. And he never answered the question that, that's something that we would look into. That's a great idea. None of that. And so my job was to get that out there. And I told him in the interview, hey, listen, it all starts with an idea. You put some legs on that idea, get some people around that idea, discuss it, marinate on it, and you see what happens. And as of a week, we haven't heard anything. So I was just happy that I had the opportunity to put that question to Mr. McCaskey.
Do you think he thought, well, you ambushed me? I was not expecting this, and there's no way I could answer it with, oh yeah, we'll give the Payton family 1%. I understand that. He can't make that decision on his own, I'm sure. But I can't imagine them. Well, here's the thing. Let me go back. This is something that they should have done on their own. I just think it's good karma. I believe in good karma. I think it's something the Bears should extend to the Payton family and say it's 0.5%. The Bears are worth, I think, $3.5 billion.
Right.
That's their value.
Right.
I don't think it's going to kill them if they give the Payton family 0.5%. Walter Payton was iconic to the Chicago Bears and to football. And they should use that as okay, the team has been crap for many decades. It's not just this last season. And they've been hemming and hawing about why it's bad and all this. But it's time to just do something that makes it all kind of feel better, and just do something in this department, because the team could be crap for another who knows how long.
Yeah. Garry, that's a great assessment as far as this team is concerned. And to answer your first end of the question, I didn't take it as if he may have thought that I ambushed him, for the simple fact that he had spent 45 minutes on the air with us. And prior to coming on with us, I did ask him, is there anything that we should stay away from, or you don't want to address or discuss? And it was open forum for him. So I don't think that he felt ambush. I think he was certainly caught off guard, because we were going along with his Q&A as far as the politically correct answers to all the questions that we were asking. But I think he was surprised by the question in its own right. And I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you because my wife always say you can't guarantee, but I say 99.9% certain that he took that question back to Virginia McCaskey, Ted Phillips, to the people in place, and said, we need to think about this and kind of evaluate this thing, because the great Mike Singletary just interviewed for the defensive coordinator position for the Bears this past week. So that was an indicator for me that they're thinking about this. But as far as the Payton family getting a piece of, and you're right, 0.5%. It doesn't matter if it's 0.5%, 1%. I thought 3.4% for 34, whatever the case may be. This is something that the family themselves should have addressed and made happen. They didn't. It didn't happen. I think it's a step in the right direction for them, and it's something that they seriously have to consider and think about, for the simple fact that what Walter Payton means, not only to the city, but to the sport itself, the National Football League. And when you have the Man of the Year award every year to remember, in my opinion, the greatest football player to ever lace them up, the least that the Storybook franchise could do is talk to the family and ask them. They may not even want it, but ask them. We would like to give you 1% ownership of this team.
There is no black ownership in the NFL right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have, I think, a minority owner, but no African American. Garry, there are 6 head coaching positions open after the season, right? There's one more job to be filled. That's down in the Houston Texans. None of the 6 positions that have been filled were filled with African Americans. One by a minority, but none by African American head coaches who are looking for an opportunity. So as far as ownership is concerned, certainly there are no African American owners in the National Football League.
Let's go back to when Walter Payton wanted to get the St. Louis Rams. How qualified was he as far as what you need to own an NFL team?
Well, from what I understand and recall, he had a substantial amount of financial backers, powerful financial backers, who were willing to put up the money. And of course, as we all know, at the end of the day, money talks, BS walks, as they say. But Walter Payton was positioned and had some serviceable individuals in his camp, to respectable and credible individuals in his camp, to make the push forward. Because one thing about Walter, he was always prepared, and he did not want to go down this venture without making sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. He was positioned, and he felt that the package and proposal that they had put together as a team was worthy enough for these owners to vote in favor to give him this team.
And here we are 20 some years later. Has there been any other black individual who wanted to buy an NFL team and couldn't get there in the same way Walter did?
Right. No, there hasn't been any, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any other African-American businessman or interest that wanted to put up money to get a football team in the National Football League. And it's unfortunate. It scares me, Garry, the fact that it's 2021 now. We're still talking about the inequalities and racial justice and everything that's going on in this beautiful country we call the United States of America. So it's really so disappointing and sad that we still have to even discuss these topics. And, when I was a kid, growing up on the South Side and, watching these teams and watching Walter Payton, and then getting the opportunity to work with Walter Payton and get to know his family and Jared and Brittany, and to still see in 2021 that there's no representation or anything outside of the Man of the Year award to honor Walter Payton. To me, as a fan, as a Chicagoan, as an African American, it's almost a disservice. Yeah. It's really a disservice.
Steve just texted in and said, I think he should own 100%. His family should own 100% of the Bears. I mean, again, it's just good karma. I mean, for what he did for the Bears and the city of Chicago, it's a feel good for everybody. And I know a lot of these sports owners in all sports, it's a weird club, because I remember that Mark Cuban wanted to buy the Pittsburgh Pirates because he's from Pittsburgh, and they locked him out because they have their own little weird orbit, and they don't want anybody that's remotely not into whatever that weird orbit is in their orbit.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's Garry, here's the scary thing about all of this. Ted Phillips, who is the CEO president of the Chicago Bears, who's been with the team for 20 plus 30 years. And I understand he's a very intelligent man. He's very good with numbers and money, having, gone to Notre Dame and Northwestern. But the Bears family, the McCaskey family and the organization put more stock in Ted Phillips than they actually do the man who helped take that franchise to the next level,
to their one and only Super Bowl.
And and Ted Phillips has never run the football. He's never thrown a pass. He's never thrown a block. He's never lifted. I don't know if he's ever lifted a weight, but he's never contributed on the field the way that this man Walter Payton has. And for his family not to be recognized, honored, and again, put a proposal together and say, hey, we want you to be 1% owners in the Chicago Bears franchise. It's almost ludicrous to me. And I do appreciate the fact, Garry, that you're keeping this going.
I just, when I heard it, Jerry, I thought, come on, it seems like a no-brainer. I know I don't have any skin in the game, but just as a good karma situation, like I said, okay, I saw this 2-part series on Tiger Woods recently. It's airing on HBO or something. And something was pointed out in this that I thought, yes. And I thought this before all of this came out, as far as Tiger and his troubles with women and all that. And when he came back to play the Masters, this thing is called the Masters in the South. Right there, there's something still not right.
Garry, ding, 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 ding. You win, as we used to say back. You're the caller of the show, even though you're the host of the show. Because think of when all this started unfolding in 2020 with the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all of this. We kind of posed the question. We really didn't throw it out on our show, the Rewind Sports 60. But I asked, several people, do you think they should change the name of the Masters because it's called the Masters? And I got the response of people kind of like frowning upon me, like, no, you can't do that. I go, but you have to understand, when this game came about, when this tournament came about, they only just recently allowed women into this country club atmosphere, and it's called the Masters. And
Tiger wouldn't even be allowed in that golf, whatever that thing is, if he wasn't a champion. I mean, they wouldn't let him have the time of day. And the other thing I noticed is when he had the scandal and he came back to play the Masters, right about 6 months after, the guy that runs that thing, he had a press conference. They said, well, this is not the way we want our club represented, and he better shape. And I'm like, and Brian Gumbel was part of this, and he said, if that was a white player who did that, they would have never publicly beaten him like that. No. And it's true. This is none of our business, a lot of that. And I know I'm kind of one off from where you're at on this, but it's just weird stuff like the Bears, who have a park district running their field.
Right.
This is an NFL team. The Chicago Park District is in charge of their field. I mean, right there, it seems like it doesn't scream success to me.
It doesn't. And again, we're talking about, a new era, and the Bears continue to practice their old way of business, and teams, organizations, they're running past them. And I give the example, as far as moving into the next, century, or the next era. And you look at what happened with the Chicago Blackhawks and Papa Warts, how he ran the organization. And now most of the finances, or the money that's made for the Warts family, is through their liquor distributorship. So Papa Warts was like 18,686 fans come through the turnstile at the Chicago Stadium, UC, or whatever the case. He didn't care. He didn't care. If you can't watch it on television, so be it. Once he passed and Rocky took over, we see the success that the Chicago Blackhawks has had, because they moved into the next realm. The Cubs did the same thing. They finally moved into the next era, and they won a championship. The Bulls are finally doing it after getting rid of John Paxson, who I love, and Gar Forman. But Michael Reinsdorf felt, hey, Dad, we got to move this thing to the next level, or we're going to lose. And they did that. So the Bears are the only team in Chicago, basically, that are still practicing old ways of doing business, and it simply won't work, and it simply won't fly.
Well, speaking of the Bulls, they got rid of Jordan and Pippen when they probably still had at least 3 championships in them. Here's the analogy I make. That's like getting rid of Lennon and McCartney in your band. I mean, what are you doing? And here they are, 23 years later, still trying to rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different show, Gary.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think Jerry Reinsdorf is probably the best owner in the city of Chicago. But he has his flaws, and one of his flaws is, and I love to work for him, to be honest with you, but his loyalty to his employees. He's loyal to a fault. And that was the case with the Bulls and Jerry Krause, that he was so loyal to Jerry Krause and gave him the power to do whatever he wanted. And that's where we find ourselves today, 20 plus years later, trying to rebuild a franchise that the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, built.
Yeah. All right. And it's 35 years since the Bears won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
35 years now. I mean, come on. Something ain't right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I had a chance to send part of the interview to Fred Mitchell, longtime Scribe, award-winning Hall of Fame journalist here in the Chicagoland area, covering all ends of sports. And he applauded me and said, thank you, congratulations, and awesome. Because he understood and understands what it means personally as far as the family is concerned in the city, but what it means as far as race relations are concerned in this country and just in this city. And it was just something that someone needed to do and someone needed to put into place. And I guess I was the guy to pitch it to Mr. McCaskey. And again, I hope that it does not fall on deaf ears.
No, so far, I don't see them all getting together. Oh, okay. How can we get that 1% of the Payton family? And I just figured after he was done with your conversation, he just went, oh, that was interesting. I'll forget about that. I hope it isn't that, but that's the way I picture it, picture the whole thing happening. Because when I see Virginia in the skybox eating the peanut brittle and the hot chocolate, she's almost 100 years old.
Yes. Yes.
Now George is what to Virginia? I don't know that whole Venn diagram of the McCaskey families.
Yeah, I think that's like the grandson.
He's the grandson to Virginia.
Yeah, I believe that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here this weekend we'll watch Tom Brady, who went to another team, still in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers from a smaller city, who's a marquee Hall of Fame quarterback, still in the playoffs year after year.
Yeah. Here's the scary thing, and I pitched this to George, and again, he had a politically correct answer for it. I said, look at the Rooney family. I said, Pittsburgh. I said, they had 3 head coaches, and all 3 head coaches have won Super Bowls.
Right. And their current head coach is a black head coach.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I go, look at the Green Bay Packers, from Bart Starr to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and his understudy is on the sideline. So the quarterbacking situation, they've been able to master that. But yet here in Chicago, we fall short of the quarterback. We fall short of the coaching. Garry, how do you fire an African-American coach who went 10-6, and you fire him because you wanted to go in another direction?
And you're talking about Lovie Smith. They had a black, right. It's not like they didn't have a black coach before. They had one. He's 10-6. We don't like what you're doing. Oh, yeah. You'd rather be 4-12 or 8-8 or whatever the hell you are now.
Yeah, and when I brought the record, this past year's record, to Mr. McCaskey, I said, the team finished 8-8. He corrected me. He said, "No, Jerry, we finished 8-9."
Yeah.
So he was proud of an 8-9 record, indicating that they went to the playoffs. But that was sufficient for him to say, "Hey, we were 8-9 this past season."
Yeah.
In my book, that's not success.
No, that isn't. Jerry, I hope you enjoyed the homage to Ohio State that Alan put together at the beginning of the show. I see you have your Ohio State stuff in the back there.
Go Buckeyes!
And your son is there now?
No. He was there. I attended the great Ohio State University back in the. I just missed the Woody Hayes days, but back in the 80s, my son fell in love with the university, and he attended in the early 2000s. God bless him. And he once he graduated, he went on and got his master's from Northwestern University, the Kellogg School of Business. And he and his beautiful wife are happily residing, guess what, in Humboldt Park in Chicago. And Humboldt Park has changed considerably. But I said, "Son, you want to live in Humboldt Park?"
Now, for those who don't know Humboldt Park, explain why you're saying that.
Well, Humboldt Park, again, when I was a kid growing up, we were terrified from the news coming out of Humboldt Park because of all the crime and the violence around that area. But over the years, Mayor Daley, the son, he was able to get in there and clean some things up. And of course, current mayor Lori Lightfoot is trying to spruce things up as well. So the neighborhood has considerably changed, but back when we were growing up, it was really, really a challenge just to even drive in the area, but it's changed considerably now.
All right. Jerry, we will talk down the road. If you hear from George, I'm not expecting that. Maybe you are. We'll talk again about this, but keep it going. I love the idea.
Oh yeah, we'll certainly keep it going. I thank you so very much. It's a pleasure. And if we don't hear from him, that's fine. But I truly believe, and again, with Mike Singletary getting an interview as a defensive coordinator for the Bears, to me, that's an indication that they're thinking about it, and it's a step in the right direction. So we'll certainly keep you posted, Garry. And thank you, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Jerry Riles, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest sports show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Riles and the Italian style. You what sports is the only politics.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town.
Yeah!
Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're streaming live on Facebook Live, broadcasting from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the fantastic neighborhood on the north side of Jefferson Park. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. Strap it down, the fastest hour in sports conversation. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. We got some banter going back and forth. We got a full house, ladies and gentlemen. We got a full house. So we want you to be a part of this full house extravaganza. Our number is 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Fastest hour in sports conversation. Let's get right to our illustrious panel, ladies and gentlemen. You love her. We missed her. She is the matriarch. Is that how you say it, matriarch?
Yeah, that's how you say it. See you with the vocab.
Of the best damn sports show in the city of Chicago, the Rewind Sports 60 on the best damn station, WCPT. Ladies and gentlemen, you love her. She was on assignment. She's back in studio and flexing the muscles that she had, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't believe me, the chairman of the Chicago Bears, George McCaskey, will certainly let you know. Lauren Cox is in the house flexing muscles. What's up, Lauren? How are you?
What's up, everybody? I missed you guys.
We missed you dearly for sure. How are you? How's everything?
I'm much well. I'm much well, more than I was for sure. But happy to be with you guys today, and just happy to be safe and healthy and all that, because it matters.
Yeah, it certainly does. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, he's not over at Wrigley Field. Nope, he's not over there. He's not at what's the other one over there?
Guaranteed Rate.
Guaranteed Rate Field. He's not at Guaranteed Rate Field. He's not over at Soldier Field. Neither are the Chicago Bears. They're at home watching these playoff games as well. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, he's the man. He's not even at Wintrust Arena watching the Blue Demons.
Blue Demons.
The DePaul Blue Demons, but he's in the studios of WCPT. Ladies and gentlemen, he's known as the Marvelous One. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver? How are you?
Hi, Jerry. It's good to see you again. Long time.
Long time, man. It's like Groundhog's Day.
I've never seen this many people in the studio. We got about 12 people in here.
It's a party, ladies and gentlemen. It's a party.
Yeah,
and of course,
right now the geezer game is going on.
Geezer game. Well, hey, you know, we got one for you. I tell you who's going to win this game between the two geezers.
Oh, boy.
Somebody with a 5
Somebody with a B. 5 letters in their last name.
Somebody with B.
Yeah. Played in the Big Ten. Yeah. 40 years of age or plus.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Future Hall of Famer. Guaranteed. Take it to the bank. It's going to win the game to advance in the playoffs to face the Green Bay Packers. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how to introduce this guy. He is the man. He is the dude. He is the stud. I really don't know how to introduce this cat because, you know, it's some political stuff going on. Last week, I introduced him the normal way that we normally introduce him, and I later found out that was code for something, man. So, dude, Quentin Dent's in the studio, former 10-year NFL veteran. What's up, boss? How are you?
What's up, bro?
Hey, man, how am I supposed to introduce you now after what?
What happened last week?
I think you were trying to tell me. So,
17th letter.
The 17th letter in the alphabet. The Q.
You say 17th letter in the alphabet versus just saying 17th letter.
Well, hey, I didn't even know it until after I got off the show.
Politics? What happened? What you mean?
Well, that was code for Trump. I guess he was for QAnon. He was saying Q in the 17th letter.
No, don't make him that.
Wait, y'all didn't? You didn't?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, man, because you were telling me last week not to, and I was like, okay, I didn't understand why, and then I saw that in the news report.
That wasn't why though.
What was the reason?
I didn't like the alphabet at the end of when you say it.
Oh, you don't like the way I say it?
I don't like the word alphabet.
You don't like it?
Nah.
So like alphabet
Just
soup.
Like 17th letter.
Campbell's alphabet soup. You don't like that?
Nah.
Okay. But it's so I don't know what transpired over the past week or so, but at that particular point in time, the letter Q in the 17th letter, that was code for Trump telling QAnon, you know, orders what to do. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I was tripping too, man.
I didn't know that.
I almost dropped my Campbell soup spoon when I was eating it. I was like, you know, the chunky.
It's my year. It's year for the Q.
He's Quentin Demps. What's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. I'm marvelous, baby.
Yeah, you said, well, he's marvelous. You're the 17th letter.
Baby.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we bring in 2021, a new year, a spectacular year, and of course, a blast from the past. We miss this guy. We love this guy. He is touring the country, and well, currently he's out on the West Coast, whether it's Las Vegas, whether it's Los Angeles, wherever it may be. This brother, he is the next Kevin Hart. He is the next,
Chris Rock.
Chris Rock. He is the next.
Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle. This guy is phenomenal. He's outstanding. He's stupendous. He's fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. He's in studios at WCPT 820 AM. He is one of my all-time favorites. I love this guy. He is known as Kelly Lee Williams.
Go Chase Daniel.
What's up, Kelly? Kelly, you got us? Uh-oh.
They too busy filming and stuff. Come on now.
Kelly, you got it on? Kelly Lee Williams is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Man, it's good to see you. You got on your Harry Potter scarf. You got on your you got your ball look going, and you got on a Kobe Bryant skull cap with the bouncy ball. May Kobe rest in peace.
Yes.
But it's good to see Kelly Lee Williams in studio here at WCPT 820 AM. Before we get to Kelly, well, he's getting some technical issues, and we'll definitely get him on real quick. But I got to say, we mentioned that the chairman of the board for the Chicago Bears, George McCaskey, was on earlier. We had a taped interview with him, and we spent literally 45 minutes talking with Mr. McCaskey about a number of things, and he was on point. He opened up, I think. Well, Lauren, why don't you share a little bit as far as what you thought about the 45-minute interview with George McCaskey?
Yeah, I think I need to find another team to root for.
Why is that?
Because I don't see how we going to win like this. I'm just going to be honest. No. Too much more of the same.
What did you think of the interview?
I think that he said what he was supposed to say. You know, he had his notes, and I just wasn't I didn't get anything different out of what he was saying, but more of the fact that it's going to be more of the same. I'll let you guys hear for yourself.
Marvelous, what'd you think?
Well, I would totally agree with that analysis. We tried to make some suggestions as to what he should do, but all personnel decisions are outside of his hand, and he can't talk about anybody that's under contract. So that's about the end of that conversation.
Well, and there's somebody that we wanted to talk about, and Lauren, you mentioned it, was Deshaun Watson, who is definitely disgruntled with the Houston Texans and certainly wants out. But, of course, the chairman can't talk about that. But there are a number of other quarterbacks that were mentioned. We're going to play a portion of that interview, that 45-minute interview. We're going to play 17 minutes of it, and it's juicy. It's fantastic. It's compelling. It's insightful. I thought it was compelling, Lauren.
It was.
I thought it was compelling. It was insightful. Yeah, we did, and I say kudos to George McCaskey for taking the time, first of all, on Sunday to join us, and secondly, to spend 45 minutes with us to answer every question that we presented to him. Some of the answers were on point. The other answers leave you scratching your head. But before we're out of here, the fastest hour in sports conversation, we'll get an opportunity to listen to a portion of that 45-minute interview. Q.
Can I just give Jerry some love right quick? I mean, not Jerry, but George some love right quick.
Yeah, well, you can always give me some love, bro.
George and I went to a Lecrae concert a couple of years back, and we jammed out and we had a good time in the back, man. So big love to George, man.
So
Get
it was
your personal relationships out of here. Hey, this ain't got nothing to do with.
So it was interesting when you shared that.
A concert with a couple players, man. That says a lot about him and his character, man, for real.
So it was you, the great Quentin Dent, Sam Macho.
Went to a Lecrae concert, the House of Blues. Down, we picked him up from his house. We came in his house. We all went down there together. You know what I'm saying? We ride in the car, just listening to music, chilling, and talking and stuff. And then we saw Lecrae, man. We was jamming out in the back.
He was dancing to Lecrae.
He was trying to vibe with. He had a little two-step in it, you know.
Oh, I thought you was gonna say he had a little something else. I mean, come on, Lauren. You're at the House of Blues. You're enjoying the concert. You gotta get your groove on.
You were at his palatial estate?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you got a chance to hang out at George McCaskey's joint?
Yeah, for a couple minutes, man. Yeah, at least one of them. I'm sure it was a modest one.
Did you have to drive through the guarded gate and everything?
Nah, we didn't go to that house.
Oh, y'all didn't go to that one?
Nah, it was tucked away.
Okay. All right. Did you see Virginia?
Nah.
Mrs. McCaskey?
Nah.
Dude, I didn't know this, and I don't know if she's Well, I guess I can say it. He said 98 years of age.
Crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
No excuse. We all can work and do what we got to do. And she doing what she doing in 98. I don't want to hear no excuse.
Let me tell you something. I hope that I can make it to be 98 years of age and I can work, believe me, because, you know, I don't want to be eating. If I'm eating oatmeal, Lauren, I want it to be my choice. If I'm eating oatmeal at 98, I want it to be my choice. Kelly Lee Williams! Where is he?
Tap in.
Oh, he's over there.
Yeah, that room's dead.
Hey, man, how are you?
That room.
I'm absolutely fine, Jerry. It's awesome to be here. Sorry, I'm on Quentin Demp's mic. I'm on a mic with Quentin Demps.
Hey.
No, dude, I'm a Bears fan from way back, all the way back, late '85 Bears. And before that, Walter Payton, man. It's just an honor to be sitting here next to you, dog. Because I know that when you get a Bear, you put on that uniform, you put your heart and your soul on that field.
Absolutely.
And every single one of you do that. And just to be sitting next to you, dog, I'm like, I feel like a football player. Not quite, not quite, but I feel a little bit.
I got you.
So, Lauren, it's great to see you. It's great to see Marvelous Jerry. Man, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. You know they're trying to run you out of here with pitchforks and torches. They don't want no brothers to be here.
No. It wasn't me they were trying to run out with pitchforks and torches. They were going up to Hallis Hall.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, they were going up there. They were taking the Edens Expressway.
Right.
And they were branching off to 294 to Tri-State, and they were heading. They were going. They were on their way with the pitchforks and everything, man.
Well, it's like a little 15 years too late. I mean, it should have been done a long time ago. We still need to be doing it. Are you kidding right now? There's an actual quarterback available right now, Deshaun Watson, right now. I mean, the one that the Bears should have drafted. They should have drafted. Here's your chance, but they're not going to get him. Eric Bieniemy, best signal caller, he's available. It seems all these other loser franchises, they don't want to give Eric Bieniemy a try. Robert Saleh, really, Jets, incredible. He should be a head coach, the next head coach. Bears should go hire Eric Bieniemy, get Deshaun Watson. This is a freaking winning team overnight.
The thing about our interview with George McCaskey is that he said at point blank that the combination of Ryan Pace, the general manager, and Matt Nagy, our head coach, that they're did he use the word excellent?
Yeah, I believe so.
Glowing reviews.
Yeah, he said it's an excellent combination to have those two.
Ryan Pace.
Those two.
And Ted Phillips.
Not Ted Phillips. Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace.
That's an excellent combination to get us to where we need to be. And where to be is consistently in the playoffs and eventually the Super Bowl.
Is Bill and Ted not available? Because obviously we can find a better combination of these two. I mean, I don't see that. Jerry, come on, you see this. You know that this is not working. You know, we Bears fans see this. They see that they're not really going for the top talent. If they were,
Lauren, what did he tell us?
He said he doesn't have anything to do with that. But he loved Mitch off of the field. He talked about Mitch off the field. Oh, man, he has so many accolades for him off the field. And I'm like, this is football. We want to know what he's doing on the field. We all see what he's doing on the field.
And Q, guess what I told him? What? I go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. He's a great guy off the field. I mean, he smiles, he's nice, he waves. I go, well, wait a minute. I can do that.
I can do that. That's what Dennis can in here do that.
And then he countered and say, well, Jerry, can you throw a football down the field? I go, well, wait a minute. That's a trick question now. That's a trick question. But if you ask me to hand the ball to David Montgomery, I can do that.
Yes.
If you ask me to throw a flare out to Mooney, I can do that. Now, if you want me to throw the ball 50 yards down the field, give me a couple, let me warm up a little bit, get the shoulder going, and I can do it.
Well, Trubisky can't do that either.
You need some stem cells or something. You can do it, Jerry.
You can do it.
Yeah, but I mean, Lauren, she hits it right on the head. The fact that, and we understand. And the Bears have some issues with, a current player now as far as off the field antics are concerned. But we understand as Bear fans and media types that you want a good character individual away from the field and the facilities. You want a clean, well, I don't know if you want a clean-cut individual, but you want an individual who is a law-abiding citizen and not going to get in trouble. And so we get that. But the reality of life is, it's life. And people are going to, especially when you talk about a 21, 22, 28, 30-year-old, hell, you talk about a 60-year-old mug. But for the most part, if you're talking about these athletes, and Q, elaborate on it, you're talking about a young group of individuals age 21 to 31 on average, making the most money they've ever made in their lives. Yeah. And you're saying, okay, practice is over with, film study is over with, whatever the case may be. Go out and we want you to be responsible.
Yeah.
But, dude, that's a tall task order, especially in a major city like Chicago.
Yeah.
And so players are going to be human because that's who they are. So to tell us, well, we want a clean-cut character, individual and someone we understand that.
Yeah.
But people get in trouble, man.
I mean, you want the best of both worlds. You want somebody that's clean-cut that can also play too, but you got to you got to like pick a side. You got to like, take the good with the bad. You know what I'm saying? Like most times and
So what was it like for you though? What was
the
it?
position too? Like at quarterback, you definitely want somebody that's like that off the field, right?
Right.
But if you got a cornerback who kind of messes up a little bit here and there, it's more lenient. But if you got a quarterback, the face of the team, you definitely want a guy that's like really, really good off the field. But most positions is just like hit or miss.
Yeah, but the problem for us, and feel free to jump in. The problem for us is that again, we're sitting home watching the two, arguably two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time squaring off, Tom Brady and Drew Brees. We saw, and wow, Patrick Mahomes, we could have had him. And I don't know if he realized where he is right now, because if you watch that game, and congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for advancing and for the Cleveland Browns to make it, but they tried to bury his head they tried to bury that brother. No it was unbelievable. But we talk about Lamar Jackson, who wins his first playoff game. So we're talking about Deshaun Watson. These are athletes who are playing at the elite level, trying to get to the top rung of the ladder. And as far as off the field is concerned, I would classify those guys as character guys who I'm proud to say, hey, they wear our uniform. But for whatever reason, it seems as if the Bears, I don't know if they're wearing rose-colored glasses or what the case may be, but to put Mitchell Trubisky in front of us and tell us he's a great guy off the field, it's kind of like sends a few question marks, to be honest.
Basically, what I also gleaned from the interview was that it seems as if George's head is stuck in the sand. I mean, he didn't seem to grasp the fact that these people are not producing. 3-6 playoff records since 2000. That's not success. In no shape, form, or fashion. So I feel like it is what you're saying. He's not looking at this the right way, and their decisions that they're making stem from that.
It's unbelievable, Marvelous. And we gave the example, and again, we'll play 17 minutes of the 45-minute interview in this second half hour, the fastest hour of sports conversation. But I kind of like rattled off the other franchise organizations here in Chicago as far as what they were able to do. Of course, the Blackhawks with the addition of the female player personnel woman that joined the franchise to bring some diversity. But the fact is, the Blackhawks made some changes, some key changes, and of course they win multiple titles. We see what the Cubs were able to do by making changes and winning a World Series title. We see what the White Sox are currently doing, and I got to get my arm back here. Because they listened to me to get rid of Ricky Renteria, right? But the White Sox are making moves because they want to win a World Series championship already to add to the 2005 championship. So, and we see what the Bulls are doing. Yeah. They got tired of all this mediocrity and nonsense. They cleaned house and they brought in a new administration. But for whatever reason, the Bears are, and you heard it, you were part of it, they're locked into this regime believing they can get us to the promised land.
Well, unfortunately, we weren't talking to the person that's going to be making personnel decisions. And, I mean, you could talk about a lot of quarterbacks that are out there. I don't think they're going to pick up Colin Kaepernick, for example.
What? Are you kidding me? Stop the presses.
But so in terms of the interview, his answers are pre-prepared for the most part. I mean, actually, there were a couple of things that came out that were, where you kind of got him a little off guard, as you will hear coming up. But
so stay tuned for it.
Nobody else had that. I'll tell you that much.
Stay tuned for it.
In general, he's been talking to the press all week, so it was just another day at the office for him. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, the bottom line is they make money, so maybe it isn't that important to to do the things that need to be done, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, that's the way it appears, and I believe the Blackhawks were like that before old man Wirtz passed away, and may he rest in peace. But when Rocky took over, we've witnessed a transition that led to a title,
we were speculating
multiple titles.
What might happen at the point in time when his mother passes.
Well, we're not looking. Again, God bless her, 98 years of age. That's fantastic, and we're not suggesting anything like that. Only thing I'm suggesting, and we talked about it, Q, is the fact that we're in the 21st century now. It's 2021. And the mindset that they're bringing to the table is just mediocrity. And like Lauren said, you have a sub 500 record in the playoffs. You haven't been to the title game since 2011?
Yeah, against Green Bay.
Yeah, you're not making progress consistently to be in the playoffs, develop a winning record in the playoffs, and get into the Super Bowl, man. What was your experience with the organization when you were lacing them up with them?
It was totally different because we didn't have Nagy. We had John Fox.
Right.
And I love Fox to death, right? That's my man, 100 grand. But when I got to the organization, man, it was terrible. I was like, what is this? You know what I mean? It just felt like it wasn't about winning.
Describe terrible to us.
It wasn't a winning culture. Like you had the good guys, the guys in the locker room who wanted to win, but it's not like the pieces ain't in the right place. You know what I mean? Like starting from the training room, the weight room, you know what I mean? Just everywhere, top to bottom, it's just like it's missing something. You know what I'm saying? So it's just I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know what it is, but like when I got there, it was different. And I was coming from Houston. We was on. You know what I mean? So I kind of regret coming now. Like it was.
Really?
Yeah, it was just I don't like it. I was depressed. It was bad, bro.
You know, it's interesting because Brandon Marshall was let go of his responsibilities for the Bears, and one reason being, the main reason we speculate is the fact that he verbalized exactly what you're sharing with us now, that there was the culture was bad.
The culture was bad.
And he was trying to as most athletes would do, try to rally the team together, try to rally the locker room together, and he was looked upon, based on what he shared, he was looked upon as being a cancer in the locker room. Wow. And so the Bears felt that they had to get rid of him because he was calling out Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
I forget who else he was calling out in the locker room, and he was calling them out after, I forget what the loss was, but at the time he was calling them out, cussing them out.
Yeah.
The door flung open and the media was there, and they heard most of it and saw what was going on, and of course reported on it. And the brass, the Bears, they said we didn't like that.
Yeah.
They ended up getting him out of town. So he was relieved. Now listen to this. He was relieved after watching this team, this 2020 season team, lose 6 in a row. And the finger pointing starting to happen. He said, I am happy to get this off my chest because I've been saying this all along, and that's why I'm out of Chicago, because of what's going on now. The culture, despite what Nagy says, and we're going to rally behind each other, he said the culture inside the organization is still negative, and he tried to share that. They didn't like it, and they cleaned house and got him out of here.
I mean, I could say the same thing, too, because they cut me after 1 year. It's almost like they don't like guys who keep it real and call you out on what's going on. It's like, I mean, that was my 10th year, so I'm saying stuff too the same way. I wasn't as vocal as Brandon, but I'm like, man, this is trash. We got to change. Like, this is terrible. Like, I don't so the whole locker room knew I had a voice too. So like, and I voiced my opinion loud and clear. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't know.
So. With your 10-year experience, and this is the Rewind Sports 60. It's a panel of Jerry Riles, Lauren Cox, the Marvelous One, Dan Marver, Q, the 17th letter.
Perfect.
And perfect. I love this guy. Kelly Lee Williams! It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. But as far as your experience is concerned, Q, how do you, as a professional athlete, draw the line in the sand where you have to determine, I'm going to be vocal, I'm going to speak out, and I'm going to try to change the culture and the mindset in this locker room, because at the end of the day, it's all about winning. And how do you balance that with Because you're a business, but you're a businessman though. You're a businessman.
I'm gonna tell you the real deal.
Okay, go ahead.
You balance it by your bank account. If you ain't got enough money in your bank account, shut up and go to work. If you got some money in your bank account, do you. By all means, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's as simple as that too. Like, real talk. I can't say, like, if Brandon Marshall didn't have that much money, I'm not sure how vocal he'd be. Same thing with me too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point you got to just be quiet and play your role. But once you become a leader and once you get your money right, like, you can voice your opinion a lot of times.
We asked him about that too, about the culture. I asked him, so you guys will hear what he said. But obviously, it's a problem from the top. I think that that's the issue, in terms of energy and it's transferred to the fan base. I feel like the fan base is really resigned. He didn't think so, but that energy, it starts from the top, and that's the issue.
Yeah.
Jerry, would you say that the problem has been since Lovie Smith has left?
Yep.
I mean, this culture, the coaches have changed. The coaches have changed. The culture remains. The culture has not changed whatsoever. The McCaskies are not changing anything. They're just in their 19th, 20th century thinking, like you were saying. And we see all these wonderful quarterbacks, running quarterbacks. And the last running quarterback that the Chicago Bears had was Vince Evans. And I don't think that the Chicago Bears are going to get any more running quarterbacks until they sell the team.
Trubisky was a runner, right?
Who?
Trubisky.
Stop it, man. Stop it.
Come on, man.
Stop it.
Don't forget
Stop it.
It's like Chase Daniel.
Hey,
Chase Daniel's
Don't forget Bobby Douglas.
Yeah.
That don't count.
Absolutely.
Hey, Q.
Hey, check your rushing yards, more.
Hey, Q. Trubisky's a running quarterback. He's a running quarterback for his life, brother.
He runs on the way to the bank to cash that check.
That's my man.
My goodness.
No. Hey, here's Mr. Trubisky. He's like, man, I got these many zeros on my check.
Golly.
Something must be wrong.
Let me cash this before they change their mind.
Real quick, you talked about Lovie Smith, and we're going to get to this. We're going to get to the interview real quick. But you talk about the head coaches as far as the Bears are concerned. Dick Joran from 1999 to 2003. Lovie Smith 2004 to 2012. Okay. And he got fired with a 10-6 record.
10-6 record.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's Bears. It was believable.
And then, of course, you bring in Mark Trestman, 2013 to 24, arguably the worst.
Don't bring him up. Don't bring him up.
Arguably the worst
that.
coach in Bears history. And, of course, your boy John Fox. John Fox, I don't know what happened to him. I mean, who knows what happened. And then, of course, we got Matt Nagy. And the jury is still out. The jury is still out.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Lauren?
We wanted him fired. We wanted him gone, the whole regime.
A couple years ago.
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and we said smoke and mirrors because they had an easy schedule, right?
It's a COVID-19 year, though. Y'all forgetting that.
Other people I went in during COVID.
Let's have some grace on the Bears, man.
He was
canceled.
Doug
Peterson won the Super Bowl 3 years ago, and he just got axed.
Boom!
Yes.
That's true.
Well, gentlemen, ladies,
Dang,
we're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into this. Lauren will set it up real quick, but before we get into the interview with the chairman of the Chicago Bears, George McCaskey, real quick thoughts, reflections on Martin Luther King, his holiday celebration. He would have been 92 years of age had he still been with us today. Kelly Lee Williams, we'll start with you. In a nutshell.
Oh, we live in a land where we're all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will one day join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Q?
Yeah. I was actually like jamming them on the way here. Like, I listened to a couple of speeches on the way here. He talks so good, like
yes.
Like he took his time and pronounced his words.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So rest in peace, man. Much love, much respect, for real.
Marvelous.
Well, I don't think his dream has been fulfilled yet. And I do an impression too. I have a dream.
Come on now.
Really good.
I know.
All right, Dan.
Next.
Lauren?
For me, I think about how inspirational he was and hope. And that's what we need now, hope and inspiration versus inciting, which is what our current president did and is doing. So I think about hope and that inspiration, and we all need much more of that today.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. Thank you so very much for sharing, everyone. It's interesting for me because I'm 58 years of age. It's 2021. And I obviously remember back when Dr. King, I don't remember vividly, of course, but well, the point being is that the struggle continues. And that's sad and disappointing to me because I'm a grown man with kids who are more or less grown, and the struggle continues. And for me, there's something wrong with that picture. There's something definitely wrong with that picture. And you talk about listening to his speech, Q, you're absolutely right, because when I listen to it, if I'm driving in a car, honestly, I want to get out the car and start running.
Yes.
Because it's so powerful.
It's so powerful, that quick.
And the fact that he spoke truth from the heart, and he didn't care. But what gives me hope, and I believe we're really there, based on everything that we've experienced in 2020, and especially with what happened at the Capitol, when he said in his last speech, I may not get there with you.
That's the one I heard.
I may not get there with you.
Yeah.
But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Yes.
When all of this stuff started happening, I said, okay, we're there.
The reckoning is here, Jerry.
We're there. We're here. And ladies and gentlemen, those of you listening to WCPT 820 AM, the Rewind Sports 60, listen, it's got to happen. Everything that we're experiencing and seeing, it must take place. But you have to stay focused. You have to pray up, stay prayerful, keep the hope, and let God's will be done. That's it. Let God do his work. Yep. That's all you have to do. Now, all of you fools out there running around, going crazy, screaming, ah! Hey, listen, you better get right with yourself. But when Martin Luther King, that resonated with me. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get there. We're on the move.
I've been to the mountaintop.
Yes, sir.
He said, I've been there.
He's been there.
Yes.
It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
Prophesizing his own assassination, really.
Pretty much.
He did.
Lauren, you want to set this up, George McCaskey?
Absolutely. Chicago Bears chairman George McCaskey was on our show today, and I asked him about the quarterback situation, which we all want to hear about. So let's hear George's thoughts on the Chicago Bears quarterback. George, I want to talk about the quarterback situation here. Mitch, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Mitch, but in the event that he doesn't come back, are you open to a possible Watson trade? Sam Darnold is on the table in terms of possibly being able to come to Chicago. Derek Carr, we've got some free agents. Ryan, Dak, Phillip Rivers, we don't know what he's going to do. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation in Chicago, and are you prepared to make some changes such as that I mentioned before?
Well, all of that, Lauren, is going to be part of, as I said, our end of season evaluation. And again, Bears fans should feel good that I'm not involved in the decision making as far as player personnel decisions are made. I'll say this about Mitchell Trubisky. I can only speak to him off the field. And off the field, he is an outstanding young man. He works hard. He has a passion for the game of football. He loves the game. He loves his teammates. His teammates love him. And I could not have asked for more of a Chicago Bears quarterback off the field than Mitchell Trubisky has given us.
Wait a minute. All those attributes that you just shared regarding Mitchell Trubisky, I some people may argue, but I think I have those attributes. I really believe I had those attributes, George. You think that I could come in and suit up?
Quarterback, Riles?
Well, I think, you know what, George? I think I can grab the football and dump it over to David Montgomery. I think I can do that. I think I can flare it out to Mooney. I think I can try to do that. And if you want me to go deep downfield, maybe a 30-yarder or 40-yarder, you know what? If I get my arm loosened up a little bit, I think I can get downfield. I might just be able to do that for you.
Well, I can always count on when I'm sitting in the stands watching the game. You see a play on the field and you hear some guy behind you say, "Man, I could make that play." And I feel like turning around and saying, "No, sir, you can't."
Well,
Which is why you and I are here and they are out there.
That's exactly right.
Think about you want to put on the best radio show you can, right?
Sure.
And you come to work every day to excel. Well, how would you like it if there were somebody on the other side of the board who was doing everything he could to make sure that you did not have a successful show? You know, he was, sabotaging the computer, the cart machine, whatever you got going over there. Everything that you were trying to do, he was doing his best to make sure that that didn't happen. It's not as easy as it looks. I understand we need to play better. I understand we need to get more wins, and that's our goal.
You know, George, this is Dan again here. I know that when you talk about player personnel, it's really going to be in the hands of Pace and Nagy. So, I mean, you're not going to give us specifics, nor could you at this point, as to what might be done. But Lauren mentioned a number of different possibilities which could happen, and I'm sure that you would approve of anything that would make the Bears better. But so, I mean, I guess you can't speak to specifics. Wouldn't that be true? It's all up to Pace and Nagy, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I can't talk about specifics for a couple of reasons. Number one, Lauren mentioned at least one player who is under contract to another team, and it's not it's not permitted for personnel from one team to talk about whether or not they would like to have somebody who is under contract to another team. The commissioner kind of frowns on that, and he makes his disappointment known in the form of monetary fines.
Yeah, he does. He does.
We love him.
Yeah, he does. One final question, and George, thank you so very much for taking time out on this Sunday to spend with us. Hope you're safe and sound. And again, I echo what Lauren mentioned earlier regarding the handling of COVID-19 and the testing and everything. That we've endured this past year. And I honestly was really surprised. I was one of the negative individuals with the glass half empty. I didn't think that we would get through a full NFL season, let alone get to the playoffs. And, hopefully, it looks like we're going to a Super Bowl. So I commend, despite the positive testings and things that have taken place, I commend the overall execution as far as the Bears organization and what you guys have been able to do up there to protect these players and keep things rolling all season long. So thank you so very much for that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but it's really a tribute to the players all across the National Football League. We're so impressed with our guys who did what was asked of them in terms of testing, physical distancing, mask wearing, proximity tracing, and then to exercise the personal discipline away from the facility that is necessary to make sure that they were available day in and day out to play games. It's just extraordinary when you look at some of the problems that are already occurring as the NBA and the NHL try to resume play, and hopefully baseball very soon. This is a very, very challenging environment, and I think our guys did a great job coping with it.
They certainly did, and you had great people up there helping out as well. One final question, and again, we appreciate you, staying with us and taking our questions and giving us the most candid and honest answers that you could. This is what I'm pitching for. One thing we didn't get a really chance to discuss with you was representation in the front office regarding minorities / women. We've seen what the Blackhawks just recently have done. We've seen what the Bulls have done, as far as their front office is concerned. Of course, Kenny Williams over with the Chicago White Sox, the position he's been in. As far as the Bears are concerned, are there any thoughts to elevate a minority / woman into a decision-making role, whether it's assistant vice president of player, operations or whatever the case may be? Is there anything on the horizon regarding more minority representation in the front office of the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because it was about this time last year that we engaged the Kaleidoscope Consulting Group, which is a diversity and inclusion firm, to help us through this process. We've had some great discussions. We had a real meaningful all-staff discussion after George Floyd was killed last spring. And we've had focus groups among the staff and leadership interviews. And the Kaleidoscope Group is helping us work through this process as we move forward. And the way it's been explained to me, it's not simply representation in terms of numbers, as you mentioned. It's people in leadership roles, and it's a culture of acceptance and tolerance. And that's all something that we need to work on. We want the Bears to be a model in this area. And we have our work cut out for us. We have a lot of work to do. And we're looking forward to the challenge.
Real quick, and thank you. Very, very well said. But I'm going to help you out here before we let you go. You don't need Kaleidoscope. You can use them, and they can be a source of reference for you. I'm going to give you a few names that I certainly know will do an impeccable job for the Chicago Bears organization that will reflect the leadership in the organization and the results on the football field. You ready for them? You ready, George?
I've got pen in hand.
There you go. You know all of these people pretty much for the most part. Bruce Herron is the first name I'm going to give to you. Bruce Herron, and I'm serious about this because he's been interested in the past to work for the Chicago Bears, a former linebacker, number 51, back in the day, played with the great late Walter Payton, but he was interested in a player personnel position with the Chicago Bears. I don't know if you would reach out and extend a phone call to him and say, hey, we'd like to sit down and talk with you, maybe see if there's a assistant player personnel position for you or something of that organization. But I believe Bruce Herron, with his experience, with his knowledge, and his Chicago roots, would be a great candidate to at least call, sit down, talk with him, and pick his brain about moving the Chicago Bears front office organization into the next realm. And this is another one. The Payton family.
Before you leave that candidate, I know Bruce Sluggo Herron very well.
Yeah.
I used to pick up his sweaty socks and jocks in the locker room back in the day. He and I go way back. But in terms of any individual, and here's another thing that Bears fans should take great comfort in. I don't tell anybody at the Bears who they have to interview. And I certainly don't tell anybody at the Bears who they have to hire.
Right.
Sluggo's a great guy, but any candidate would need to be interviewed and selected by Ryan and his staff in the personnel department.
Okay, well, just let him.
But who's your next name?
So here's the other one. Now you have to be sitting down for this one. You have to be sitting down for this one because this is the blockbuster here.
No.
Here's the deal. Everybody loves Papa Bear George Halas. Because of, we only have to say why. But Grandpa Halas loved number 34, as we all do, Walter Payton. May he rest in peace. He has two beautiful children, professional people here in Chicago. Jared Payton over at WGN Channel 9, and Brittany, I believe, is she over at Fox or Channel 2, whatever the case may be. Listen, George, this is what I would recommend. Just me, Jerry Riles. I would seriously consider sitting down, Ted Phillips, sit down with Mama McCaskey, Virginia, and maybe drop a proposal to invite the Payton family in. You can even throw in Eddie Payton, Walter's brother, and offer them 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears, to have some type of minority representation for the Chicago Bears and the family. And even if it's at 1% or 10% ownership, and I know that's a lot to ask, but I believe in the contributions that Walter Payton brought to the team, the city, and of course the league, i.e., the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. I think that's something that should seriously be considered with the Halas family and the Bears organization. And I would extend a proposal opportunity to the Payton family to entertain a 1% ownership in the Chicago Bears franchise. What do you think?
Well, we think the world of the Payton family, Connie, Jared, Brittany, and so proud that they are still members of the Bears family after all these years. Just think the world of them. I can't speak for Brittany, but I know we can't afford Jarrett. That guy, his demands would be too. I'm kidding, of course. I have a great relationship with both of them. They're absolute naturals on the air, and just a great family. We think the world of them.
Well, the one reason I posed that question, George, is the fact that you know that when Walter, before he left us, he put a bid in to become the minority owner of the St. Louis Rams, I believe, at the time. And the vote came in, and he was denied. And he was crushed. He was devastated. And many of us were, especially in the black community, because of what he brought to the game. But he was devastated and shocked that the owners around the league did not consider him to become a minority owner in the National Football League. And so, we talked some 30 plus years later. When did he pass? 22 years, I think, or somewhere around that time. But the point is, Walter.
November 1st, 1999.
99, exactly. Those of us here who have followed this team since our infancy and our baby days, we truly believe that the Payton family deserves some type of representation or ownership in this franchise organization. I understand there's a lot that goes into it, but it all starts with an idea and a conversation. And so we want to just put that conversation out there for you, to marinate. And it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen next year or, maybe a couple of years. But the point is, that's a conversation I think that truly deserves a little more discussion based on what that family means to the city of Chicago and the Chicago Bears franchise.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all of the reasons that Walter's bid for a team in St. Louis was not successful. I know that we supported it 100%. Walter was a member of our board of directors so that he could be prepared for that eventuality if it ever came about. I'm sorry that it didn't, but Walter's place in the hearts of Bears fans and in our family is solid. I remember my mom, after Walter passed away, said that she and my dad promised themselves after Brian Piccolo passed away that they wouldn't get too close to a player again because it was too painful when Brian passed, and they were able to keep that promise to themselves until Walter Payton came into their lives. He just had an irrepressible personality. Once he decided that he wanted to be in your life, there was no denying him, and we're all the better for it.
George, thank you so very much. We normally keep our guests 10, 15, 20 minutes tops at the most. The great Mayor Lori Lightfoot's been a half hour with us. You are well past that, and we want to thank you dearly for taking the time out of your busy
I appreciate
Sunday.
all this time. I was told it was going to be about 10 minutes. Hopefully you can edit it down and maybe get maybe 30 or 40 seconds of usable material out of it.
I think we can find something. George, thank you so very much. God bless you, and God bless our Chicago Bears. And we don't want to be like the Buffalo Bills. We don't want to be in the stands. Well, we like to be the Buffalo Bills, but I mean, we don't want to have to wait 100 more years to get back to the playoffs and to the championship game. We want another Super Bowl here. So roll up the sleeves and get the job done, and let's go. We beat this pandemic, and let's beat some NFC butt and get back to some winning ways here in the Chicagoland area. Thank you so very much for taking time with us.
We understand the expectation. We're looking forward to the challenge. Go Bears.
Go
Thanks,
Bears.
George.
Thank you so very much. God bless you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and, of course, the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas, our second season. Doc, Happy New Year to you. Happy 2021, and happy season. The NBA is underway. The National Football League is playoffs. Our Bears are eliminated, but, of course, we're looking forward to the Super Bowl and college basketball with March Madness. There's a lot to unfold here, a lot to get into, but first and foremost, how are you and your lovely family doing?
Oh, Jerry, we're fantastic. How about you?
We're doing awesome as well. And I can tell you so much, as far as this COVID is concerned and the pandemic. And, again, we continue to plow forward and see if we can get grip around this thing. But thank goodness for sports, because I know myself personally and a lot of sports fans around the country are happy that we get an opportunity every weekend to tune in to some sports, whether it's on Saturday, Sunday, and as far as college ranks are concerned throughout the week. So ecstatic for that. And we'll get an opportunity to talk more about COVID and sports. But I want to touch with you. The last time we had an opportunity to talk, we were discussing the NFL playoffs. And again, the Bears are eliminated. But we were discussing the thumb injury of the quarterback for the Rams. That, of course, Jared Goff, who due to injury to the fill-in quarterback, he got an opportunity to play. His team was eliminated. But the fact that he came back with an injury that was repaired a matter of maybe 10 to 14 days and get out there and perform, it was quite impressive. And you touched on it on our last podcast, but I wanted to follow up and get your perspective on what you were able to witness with Jared Goff's performance.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And as I mentioned last time, the idea that you can have a structure, normally you fix a ligament and it takes a long time for it to mature, whether it's the thumb or Tommy John or ACL. And as I mentioned, the surgeon puts in a temporary structure to hold it while the biologic structure is healing. And it's remarkable. I mean, in the 35 years I've been doing this in practice, there's very few things I can think of that have altered an aspect of the field like that has. And so he, as you said, he got back to work sooner than he wanted. And even though they lost the game, he threw fine pretty much. And he said he was a little sore, but not all that much. So I thought that was just remarkable.
Yeah, it was remarkable, and television did a great job of showing a comparison between his throwing hand and his normal hand, and how his index finger and his thumb looked under normal circumstances compared to the restructured, surgically repaired thumb. And of course, he had a brace on it as well. But the fact that, as you talked about, he was able to go on out there and perform in the playoffs and execute was quite impressive.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. If you let your mind wander a little bit on this, this is a basic principle. So the doctor, Dr. Shin, calls it an internal brace. And so the idea is that normally when you would repair, for example, that thumb ligament, you'd put the person in a brace or a cast, like an external brace. So he was doing it on the inside. And it relies on putting pins in the bone, holding in the bone, and not loosening, and the person being able to function. So, it kind of makes you wonder. It's almost like a new principle of surgery. Could you do this with other ligaments? So I'm an ACL surgeon, as you know. And so, actually, in Europe, not really here, people have used synthetic grafts for ACLs for a long time. They've tried, and they haven't really worked out well. So they're not used in the United States at all. I don't know that they're used much in Europe anymore. I think a little, but there was a period of time when people tried them. And there have been structures, going back to when I did my fellowship in Boston 35 years ago, there were people using carbon fiber to try to replace things. So as a permanent answer, synthetic substances have not been the answer. But, makes you wonder. When you fix an ACL, you make a tendon into a new ligament, and it takes a while. But makes you wonder: could you put a temporary ligament in there, like an internal brace kind of thing? Put a couple of screws in to the bone and stabilize the knee. I mean, because after you tear your ACL, most people get pretty sore and swollen, but it's variable from people, but it passes in a matter of weeks in general. So I don't know that you could do it in 2 weeks, but you might be able to do it in 4. And that's a whole different thing. You know, somebody, Tariq Cohen tears his ACL at the beginning of last year, misses the whole season, right? So, you know, if you could do something like that, he could be back maybe halfway through or before. Tommy John surgery. These are a little different than what Jared Goff had. He had a ligament that was torn and it was kind of reattached. The things that I'm talking about, the ACL and Tommy John, you're actually taking a tendon from someplace else and having it morph into a ligament. It's kind of different. But in some ways, the principle is the same. If you can put a temporary synthetic structure in that would stabilize the joint while the other one was healing, you know, who's to say? So I don't know. It'll take somebody with ingenuity and guts to think about doing something like that, and might be kind of a big gamble to take, you know, because if you do a big ACL reconstruction and put a temporary structure in and it fails, that's kind of a problem. But it makes you wonder. I mean, it really makes you wonder if that could be the harbinger of more things like that in our field. And actually, you know, while we're talking about that, when you think about the implications of this, so it was maybe, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, I don't know exactly, when Jay Cutler had a pass intercepted and the players running the other way, and he went after to try to tackle him. In the process of trying to make the tackle, he tore a ligament in his thumb. I don't know for sure, but it was probably the same injury that Jared Goff had. And, you know, he got it fixed, but he missed the rest of the year. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but the Bears were very close to making the playoffs. They had done great. And they had a backup in Caleb Haney, who had, you know, very accomplished college quarterback, but for whatever reason, the Bears just weren't able to get over the hump, and they just barely missed the playoffs. So, you know, you wonder if that were today, maybe he could have gotten back in a couple of weeks. Maybe history would have been different. The whole, you know, because he was up and down with the team, obviously, and that was an up year, right? So who knows if they'd have made the playoffs and he'd come back, maybe everything would have been different. I don't know. But it's not an uncommon injury. You know, Rajon Rondo, I think, had the same thing that year with the Bulls. They were up 2-0 in the playoffs against the Celtics. Remember, they were doing great. Right. And they lost when they had Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler. And he went down, and I think they lost the next 4. I don't remember, but I know they lost. So I don't know. That probably wouldn't have allowed him time to get back for that series. But it's not a rare injury, and it's just a sea change in how it's handled.
You know, it's interesting, Dr. Chad Prodromer's the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast. It's interesting how much of it is a doctor's, ingenuity to test the waters or go beyond, and how much is it the athlete himself that, or, you know, when you talk about professionals, ownership pushing the envelope, so to speak, to venture into the new age of medicine. So I guess basically what I'm asking you is, how many times with an injury such as this, you talked about Jay Cutler and you talked about Jared Goff, how many times, and we talk about the ACL and the evolution of that injury and repairing it, how much is it, does it take for medicine to catch up with, you know, what we want as humans to get back out there and perform?
So I'll tell you, it's a complicated question, particularly with professional athletes. And so the main answer to your question is it the players, the ownership, is the doctor? This is entirely on the doctor, because nobody, I don't know who Dr. Shinn did his first one on, but nobody expects when you get that injury that you're coming back right away. And so, again, I don't know the circumstances of how he finally decided to do it, but I think it's probably something like him saying, well, we can try this. And I don't know if he did any other studies on animals or anything else, or cadavers. I don't know. But it might have been something like saying, well, we can try this. I can't guarantee that it'll work. You're taking a chance. It's experimental. And if you want to go for it, I can try. But I'll tell you, it's a really difficult, speaking as a practicing surgeon, it's a really hard thing to do. Because then you say to yourself, well, what if it didn't work? You know, what if? So that ligament tears, you sew the ligament together, and then you put this other strap thing in with a couple of pins. Well, if the pins pull out, or it doesn't hold. That's one thing. But if that happens, the ligament you repaired is going to get torn a second time. And if that happens, the chances of being able to re-repair it with as good a result are probably less. So you're kind of playing with fire, right? Because you could try this, and if it doesn't work, then you go back in again and do the conventional operation. And you're probably taking a chance that he'd never come back, that the ligament would be so messed up that you couldn't fix it. So I have to tell you, I admire the heck out of Dr. Shin for doing this. It not only was smart, but it takes guts. And, in our field, rightfully so, you just don't go doing things because you think it might be a good idea, right? You don't go, you have to have good reasons if you're going to have some innovations. If you do a procedure that results in somebody having a permanent problem, it's a hard thing to live with. It's hard for the patient. It's hard for the surgeon as well. So I think I can't think of another area. I mean, because again, I've been doing this for 35 years. I started my orthopedic residency at Rush in 1980, my sports medicine fellowship at the Mass General in 84. So that's 40 years, right? And the other things that I've seen, I fixed ACLs. When I first started, we did this huge operation, big incisions, hospitalized, pretty good success. And, I was among the people in the era that was kind of developing a minimally invasive thing. And in my case, it was the late 80s. So, that's pretty significant. But, so the advent of arthroscopy was a huge change, but that was before. And we've refined our arthroscopic techniques. But I mean, I honestly, the common sports medicine injuries, meniscal tears and ACL tears and labrum tears, there have been refinements in technique in the era of arthroscopy, but this goes back to the 80s. But I can't think of anything else, honestly, where you would so totally change the paradigm of treatment that something that would take months to get better gets better in weeks.
It's quite an interesting venture as far as witnessing what Jared Goff went through with the surgery and being able in a short period of time to recover, so to speak, and get back out there and perform. As a layperson or a weekend warrior who may have experienced the same type of injury, is it recommended from a medical standpoint, from a doctor's perspective, to let the procedure, let it heal and take the time to get it back as close to normal as possible, as opposed to rushing, within 2 weeks to get back out there to perform your task?
I don't know. I mean, if you had that injury, and you were in a sport, I mean, if it were me or if it were my, son or daughter or whatever, I would probably, I mean, it kind of depends. See, there's a little more to it than this too. So, as I recall, and I haven't read this literature closely, but as I recall, the results of doing it quickly with the internal brace versus not, I think it's been studied, and I think it's the same. So, yeah, I mean, why not do it that way? I'll tell you what happens, though, is that, see, surgery is a funny field. It's surgeon dependent, a lot of things, right? I mean, so Dr. Shin doing it is one thing. But somebody who had never done it, only doing it once or twice and trying to do it is another thing. So when you're doing something that's new, it's important to make sure that the person who's doing it has some experience with it. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably go try to find him or somebody who had done a lot of them, because, having somebody doing it for the first or second time who just read about it, is your chances of not as good a result are probably greater.
Yeah, well, I mean, very well said and great advice, to say the least. I want to transition and, get back into it because, of course, we're still I don't know if you want to call it celebrating, but we just reached a point of a year anniversary of COVID, the virus hitting the United States. And our heart and prayer goes out to the families who have lost loved ones to this deadly virus, and over 400,000 cases for the year, and they're expecting more. But the big issue, and I started off the podcast saying that I was happy that we as sports fans get an opportunity to watch, any particular sporting event every weekend, because it takes our mind off of what our everyday experiences are. There are many skeptics out there, I included, was one of them, that didn't think that, one, we wouldn't get through the baseball season. And of course, we see the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. I didn't think we'd necessarily make it through the NBA, although they went into the bubble. We see the Los Angeles Lakers with the NBA title for last year. And of course, I certainly didn't think we'll make it through the college football. And of course, congratulations to the Alabama Crimson Tide for winning the 2020 national championship, beating our beloved Ohio State Buckeyes. But Doc, I mean, we're in the NFL and the playoffs, and the Super Bowl is coming up in a matter of weeks. Despite all the opposition and the negative, skeptics out there, me being one, it's surprisingly that we had few cases and no deaths, and we made it through. And you were carrying the flag, said, "Hey, get out there, let's get it done, and we can make it happen." And you certainly were right.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'm glad to have been right about that. And there was some national person who said, somebody's going to die in the college football season, which hasn't happened. And it's I mean, the deaths are a terrible tragedy, obviously, but the other tragedy of this whole episode has just been, not necessarily saying it's intentional, but it's just been the excessive fear-mongering around this virus that has caused worse shutdowns that needed to occur, which have had worse consequences that needed to occur. And I've talked to other physicians who say, you would think from the way it's talked about that it's the bubonic plague or Ebola or something, instead of something that in the overwhelming majority of people does almost nothing, but does obviously causes death in a particular group of people. And so, I mean, I think what happened was inevitable. It's almost a fairly simple formula. I mean, you play, if people get it, they recover, and people are going to miss games, and it's going to be awkward. Some games are going to need to be scheduled and rescheduled, one thing and another. But, I worried a little about very heavy set football players. And the one mortality that I know of, as I mentioned before, was an unfortunate gentleman. I don't know the details, but it's almost a year ago, I think, who was said to be 6'3" and 330 pounds or so, and passed, unfortunately, before the regular season started. And so I worried a little, because being heavy is definitely a risk factor in being male. So I worried a little about that, but that doesn't seem to have been a problem either. So, yeah, and I'm glad. I was reading today, talking to people today about the Olympics. And I think the Olympics are scheduled to go on. What they'll do with fans in the stands, I don't know. But the fact is that these young, healthy people, there was an occasional death from the flu. So I'm not saying it can't ever happen, but the data is just overwhelmingly that it's safe. And it just makes no sense to not have it. I mean, if you go out there and people get sick and they can't go, then you deal with it. But to penalize everybody for that, I think makes no sense. And even the fans in the stands. I was just reading today that the Super Bowl, I think they're going to have roughly a third of the stadium full, 20,000 some fans. I think 2/3 of those 20,000 are going to be frontline healthcare workers, the free tickets, and then they're going to have some other people. And they're going to take all the proper precautions with masks. And I don't know, maybe they're even required people to have been vaccinated. I'm not sure. But it makes you wonder, now with these games now, they could have people in the stands, and they're outside. Stadiums are huge. You could socially distance. You could require masks. Heck, if you want, limit it to people who've been vaccinated or people who have had it. I mean, you could do that. And it's still not being done. And it sort of breaks my heart, because small businesses are still closing terribly and aren't reopening. And there has been overreach that's worse than it needs to be. And I'm not saying it's intentional. If you're a governor, and I think governors have overreached horribly, but, from their perspective, they see people dying and they're doing the best they can. And so from their perspective, better to overreach and save lives. I mean, I understand their logic and I feel for them too, because it's tough to be a layperson trying to deal with this. And I was saying wear a mask before anybody knew. I actually, we still don't exactly know about masks, but like, why not? I mean, I'm a surgeon, right? I don't operate now as much as I used to, but I would wear a mask most of my working life early on, and so what's the big deal? But so I hope the Olympics take place, and I'm glad fans are going to be in the stands at the Super Bowl. And again, it's an outdoor sport, and so I'm not at all surprised that things have gone well. And actually, there's another layer, and I've talked about this every time we've talked about it, but there's a whole other layer. The vaccine's extremely important, no question. But there are treatments. I mentioned before, hydroxychloroquine that we've done research on, ivermectin. There's no question that this stuff works. There's no question it would save lives. It's being used elsewhere in the world where they don't have the luxury, where they don't have as much in the way of funds. So I'm just hoping that the word gets out, because there are people, you want to vaccinate people and prevent people from being sick, of course. But there are people who are getting it who could be treated with these drugs if there were greater awareness. And again, this isn't intentional, I don't think, things are, I was interviewed in a radio show on a major radio station in Chicago a month ago, about 6 weeks ago, because we'd done these research studies. And the hostess said to me, well, do you think we'll be back to normal by 22? So this must have been maybe early December. And I said, if we do things right, we should be back to semi-normal by early 21. And then we run into supply chain issues, right, which is kind of unfortunate with distributing the vaccine. But I mean, what's normal, right? Is wearing a mask normal? No, but I don't think wearing a mask is a big deal myself, and distancing. But when I say normal, I mean people getting back to work, businesses not folding. So anyway, so I'm not surprised, and I think things will continue to be fine. And I'd like to see the pace accelerate. I'd like to see more sports allowed at a higher level. I'd like to see more fans in the stands with precautions going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting and very well elaborated as far as explaining your thoughts and viewpoints on how we move forward. The interesting thing is, and some obviously see it as a setback, is the talk of a new strand of the virus that's hit the United States over the past couple of weeks or so, saying that it's more contagious and it spreads a lot more rapidly. Although fatalities may not increase, it still puts many of those with pre-existing conditions in a much vulnerable state and position. How do you address that regarding sports and the world of athletics trying to get back to some normalcy?
So, Jerry, I think that it's probably not a significant thing. It kind of goes back there, and I think it gets back to bad news sells, right? I mean, people getting out there, it sells newspapers. And again, I'm not saying anybody's doing anything bad on purpose, but it kind of gets back to the doctor who I'm sure was well-intended from Penn State, who said that, I forget exactly what he said, but maybe a third of the people were going to have heart problems. Remember that? After 19, it turns out not the case. It was retracted. And I think the thing is being examined so closely. I just don't think that it matters much. And why I think it's important not to get wrapped up in it is I think focusing big picture, if you take precautions, social distance and masks, if you vaccinate the people that should get vaccinated, and honestly, let the people that are healthy get it. So and now it's not even a 14-day quarantine. It's 10 days out of your life. Some of them get pretty sick, but they get over it. And I just hate to see, how shall I say, progress toward normalcy being retarded by being slowed down by things like this. Because I don't think, big picture wise, any of this is going to matter much. And I think that shutdowns are matter a lot. So I'm not, maybe it is more contagious, one thing and another, and but I just don't, and it's not going to be the last time people will come across this. Something else you said is very important. Getting it is one thing. Dying from it is entirely something different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the dying from it part that is what really matters. So I don't think, and the tone of it sometimes is, well, we've had this bad virus, and boy, now it's going to mutate, and it will turn into Ebola, and it will turn into the bubonic plague, and it hasn't, and I don't think it's gonna.
Yeah, I don't know, and what a difference a year makes, for sure, because we were all in the dark, so to speak, regarding this virus, and obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it's been compared to the flu, and there were some officials, local, state, and of course federal, leaders who, at one point in time, say, "Hey, you don't need a mask." And then as more information became available, oh, you better wear a mask. So unfortunately, again, over 400,000 people have lost their lives to this virus, and it affects all of us. And I agree with you. The important thing is to be responsible, not only to yourself and to your family, but your neighbor as well. The vaccine, I think that's a personal decision that we all have to make. But as far as getting back to some sort of normalcy, we don't know what that picture actually looks like. And you're right, you don't want the little guy to suffer, whether it's the small business owner in your local town or even the kids in education is concerned. You want to just make sure that we can live some sort of respectable, normal life. But until that time, and I look at it as like the Tylenol scare. Remember with the Tylenol?
Yeah.
There are people in this generation who have no idea what that means, but it's almost it's stunning that prior to that, I mean, you can literally walk into a store, open up a bottle of Bayer aspirin, take one out and seal it back up and go on. But now, after that big scare that happened, everything gets sealed. So with this pandemic, we talk about getting back to some sort of normalcy. That normalcy, it may be the fact that we have to wear a mask every day, wherever we go when we go outside. So I don't know, but again, getting back to the world of sports, it's commendable that the respective leagues and the respective owners and commissioners on the chancellors, presidents on the collegiate level, all are doing their due diligence to get back to some sort of normalcy and letting the kids play and letting the athletes get out there and trying to keep the protocol as set as they possibly can so that we can have some sort of normalcy, and hopefully we can move forward and get back to a normal way of lifestyle, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think there should be more of it. And I think that I'm a physician, so I don't want to sound self-important, but I think the political leaders would do well to listen a little more to physicians, frontline physicians, because I think, look, if you're a political leader, I think it's kind of difficult to understand some of these medical studies, and particularly there were several fraudulent ones out there, as you probably know, that were retracted, that are still being cited, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a political leader, I think you're just like, wow, just whatever it takes, we just gotta, shut it down. And I don't blame them for doing it. Must be a very scary situation to be in, but I don't think that's where the decisions ought to be made.
Yeah,
and honestly, I don't think it should be made by centralized scientists either. I think it should be made by frontline physicians. I think they have the best handle on risk benefit, what works, what doesn't, how to protect people. So I don't know that that's been the case so far, as much as it should be. So I hope it is more going forward.
I hope so too. And I hope that people take more responsibility, again, personally, regarding their health and welfare. I think if you take the responsibility as a human, as a person, for yourself, for your family, and your neighbors, I think we can certainly get past this. I saw a disappointing quote, heard it locally here in Chicago, where a young lady, African American woman, in the Hammond Garry area about a week or two ago, got the vaccine in her 60s, and the reporter asked her, "How do you feel?" And her quote, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, she said, "I will feel much better once I get some McDonald's hamburgers inside me." And my mouth literally hit the floor, because she's getting the vaccine to protect herself. But we talked about pre-existing conditions, and no offense to fast foods and McDonald's and all of that, but that's that's a fast food that contributes to the high rate of diabetes and heart disease in the Black and brown communities. And it was sad and disappointing to hear that this woman, that was her mindset. So I think that if we educate ourselves a little bit more and take responsibility for ourselves collectively as a country, we can get past this and get closer to some sort of normalcy. But I was really taken back by her response, and disappointed, because I think she represented thousands of people in the community who feels that way and lives that way.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it's unfortunate that it's gotten to be politically incorrect. Like what you're just saying is the truest words you could possibly say, but they have gotten to be almost politically incorrect to say it. Mm-hmm. And people who say that, Boris Johnson talked early on about, because obesity clearly contributes to mortality, about working on that, and he got shouted down, and hasn't brought it up since. The CEO of Whole Foods, not Bezos, but somebody who works for him, came out recently and said, the answer to the healthcare problem, he said, is just not to be sick so often. And he brought up too the incidence of obesity and all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of attention given to. There's a recent cover of Cosmopolitan, not something I usually read, but it was pointed out to me. And there was a heavy African American woman, and then on Cosmopolitan in England there was a heavy Caucasian woman, and the word was, "This is healthy," and the idea being comfortable in your own skin. But it got kind of shouted down because it's not healthy, and people said, especially now with COVID. But it's tough love about lifestyle is filled with landmines now. Of all kinds of things by saying. So I laud you for saying what you said, because it's absolutely the answer, and it's not said enough.
Yeah, and that's why I believe we have this platform and this podcast to speak the truth, and to get the knowledge out there for people to make a decision regarding their personal life and their personal lifestyles. So I commend you and appreciate you for doing this over the past year, and we start our second season. And you don't have to like it, as far as our viewers are concerned and our listeners. But it's a matter of educating yourselves and taking that information and using it to the best of your benefit to take care of yourself. And that's, I believe, what the Sports Medicine Update podcast brings every week, and that's what we continue to try to deliver here.
Yeah, it'd be great if it were, had some influence in that regard, I think.
Well, if we can influence one person, I think we've done our job, and I'm sure we have.
Agree. I'm sure
we have. Hey, Doc, it's a pleasure and great talking with you always, and we can continue to go. But we will certainly certainly look forward to talking with you next week, and let's see what's on the horizon. But if anyone wants to get more information for Dr. Chad Prodromos and find out more, whether it's COVID or a knee injury, an ankle injury, or whatever the case may be, for the weekend warriors, the amateur athlete or the professional athlete, how do they find you?
So our phone number is 847-699-6810. Got a great staff. Like to help any way we can. Just give us a call.
Sounds good. Dr. Chad Prodromos, thank you so very much. Stay safe and enjoy the weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, sir.
Likewise, Jerry. Thank you.
Take care.